Welcome to Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD necessary.
We're the podcast that recaps all episodes of The Big Bang Theory, no spoilers.
So hop into your favorite spot,
make yourself a grasshopper, and enjoy the ride.
Hello there, Ryan.
Hi, Rob.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great because we just made it to season 2.
Oh, yeah.
It's a new year, new season, and we finally brought IQ points.
Yes. Season 2, episode 1.
Yep. For any new listeners out there, we are Theoretical Nonsense, the podcast that recaps, reviews, and deep dives facts from the Big Bang Theory, which we call IQ points. As a reminder, this is Ryan's first time watching The Big Bang Theory, and I've seen the series several times. Ryan has also been compared to Sheldon multiple times from different people, so we keep tallies on how similar Ryan is to Sheldon. So we just did our Season 1 recap, and last I remember, you were a Sheldon.
I was. And by like quite a few points too. It's 25 points of me being Sheldon and 20 of me not being Sheldon.
Sorry, I'm trying to get his binky back in.
Oh, no worries.
But if anyone hears any cooing or anything like that, I have my baby Sollied to my chest. So if anybody knows what Solly is, it's a wrap. So
that's a wrap.
He's wrapped like a burrito. So if you hear any cooing or anything like that, that's all it is. All right, a little housekeeping. We have an Instagram account at Theoretical Nonsense Pod, and we also have an email, theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. Send us an email and we'll read it out loud. And also, if you give us a 5-star review, we'll give you a shout out. And last I checked, we didn't have anything new.
I didn't see anything new either, but we're still standing pretty high. I like seeing
that 4.9.
Yeah, I guess nothing new is better than like a 1-star review, but
yep. Nope. Hopefully we don't get that. And now that we have, the only thing that I really got worried about is our sound. So Ryan and I have been troubleshooting our sound. Well, more or less, I've been troubleshooting mine. So all of season 1, if there was a bad audio, it's usually my fault. So sorry about that. I got a new mic and I figured out how to use it. Well, that's the baby.
He actually has a better mic than me now, so I'm going to be the one who sounds kind of crummy.
Let's hope so. All right. Should we just dive into the new episode?
I think so. I think we're ready to do it.
Yeah. What were your overall thoughts of the season 2, episode 1?
You know, I liked it. I'm excited because I feel like television shows usually take a couple episodes to get into a rhythm, but also usually the second season, third season are where the show really picks up its groove. And I'm kind of seeing that the characters, we know who they are, and we're going to start seeing them just kind of go hand in hand and more naturally, I guess. And that's what it seemed like this episode. Things were more natural than some of the episodes in season 1.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really like this episode. I actually had a lot of laugh out loud moments. I usually don't laugh out loud as I'm watching a TV show by myself, but there was a few moments where I actually found myself like laughing out loud. So this was a really good like start to the new season. It's like you said, season 1 is usually when a show is trying to get their footing, and I feel like they're finally picking up their stride. They know who the characters are. They're playing on their strengths. It's good.
So do you laugh out loud when other people are in the area, or
I do?
Yeah, you do? Oh, I always laugh out loud. Like even when I'm just by myself thinking, people look at me weird, like, "Why is that guy laughing?"
That guy's crazy. Oh, speaking of which, I forgot to mention, we have a new fan out there. A shout out to my dad. I told him about the podcast, and he told me he's been listening. He says he actually really enjoys you. That you're a very good host, and that you're very funny. That he laughs at a lot of things that you say.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I
didn't
like
say
hearing
shit
that.
about me. So thanks, Dad.
My mom's supposed to be listening, but she also keeps asking me where the podcast app is on her iPhone, so I'm not completely sure she is listening.
You need to get her to give a review. We can get 16 ratings with her if you teach her.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that's going to be a whole nother predicament. I can get her listening, but reviewing, yeah.
You know what? As long as you walk her through the review, that's all that matters. She don't even need to listen. It's all about them ratings. Let's get to 4.95.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom. What'd I do? Nothing. Don't worry about it.
Just next time you see her, just get a hold of her phone and rate it. All right, should we just get started
Yeah.
in the episode?
So the title of this episode is The Bad Fish Paradigm. This aired September 22nd, 2008, which is going to be kind of important later with one of the IQ points. Well, one of the first IQ points. Director was Mark Zandrowski. Writers Chuck Lorre, Bill Prady, and David Ghosh. Ghosh? How do we pronounce that again? Ghosh? We're
It
going
sounds
with
like Ghosh, or at least it looks like Ghosh. It looks like
Let's-
it would sound like Ghosh.
It looks like a ghost to me. And we we start off basically where season 1 left off. They Leonard and Penny have just finished their first date, and they're walking through the hallway coming up to their apartments, and she's eating frozen yogurt. I have to admit that they mention it's pinkberry. I don't think I've ever had pinkberry.
I have.
Yeah.
Pinkberry was like hot around this time. Well, frozen yogurt in general in like the mid 2000s, 2008 in particular was like frozen yogurt was like all the rage. And this is the first IQ point.
Yeah. Is there anything different than from TCBY and like pinkberry, or is it just like different brands, or
I think it's just the company.
Just different-
So I guess this might answer your question about frozen yogurt in general, this IQ point.
yeah.
So Leonard goes into like the whole like, oh, what you're eating is really just iced milk with carrageen and added thickness and everything.
Yeah.
So it got me wondering. I was like, well, what is frozen yogurt? I mean, you don't just take yogurt and freeze it. There must be something else to
A
it.
chunk of frozen yogurt, literally. It's like an ice cube.
Here's your Yoplait. Good luck getting it out.
Don't hit anybody with it. Go back. Ow.
So the first IQ point is what is frozen yogurt and what is carrageenan? So I found that I cross-checked this amongst multiple articles. myfearlesskitchen.com, eclipsefoods.com, and the FDA.gov.
Mm.
So the difference between ice cream and frozen yogurt. So ice cream, there actually are FDA guidelines to what can be classified as ice cream. It's a blend of dairy products, typically milk and cream, sweeteners and other flavors, and it must have at least 10% milk fat, and the weight needs to be at least 4.5 pounds per gallon. So pretty relatively strict guidelines on what ice cream is.
Mm-hmm.
But then frozen yogurt, there actually is no FDA regulations on naming it.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. It's made of a mixture of yogurt, milk, and cream. But since there's no guideline, there's no regulation on how much yogurt actually needs to be in there. So it could contain the cultures, but it could not.
You there?
So
you just broke up a little bit. You want to start back at no certification for yogurt.
Okay, there's no regulation on how much yogurt actually needs to be in there. So it could contain the cultures, but it could not. So Leonard is partially correct. Because he mentioned that, like, oh, there aren't enough cultures in this to actually be classified as yogurt. It kind of just depends on what company is making it. So pinkberry, maybe. I don't know. So there's probably there. It's probably there, but maybe not enough to truly classify as yogurt, because yogurt actually itself does have an FDA guideline on its naming.
I got that there is something called a National Yogurt Association. I don't know how official that would actually be, but according to this association, I just imagine there's like this board of people who sit around eating yogurt and making decisions. Is this yogurt? Uh, but according to this National Yogurt Association, yogurt's supposed to have frozen yogurt supposed to have 10 million live cells per gram to get the seal of yogurt approval from this association. But again, I don't know how legit this association is. Something interesting I did find is according to eater.com, as of April 17th, 2008, which this episode aired September 22nd, 2008, as of April 17th, 2008, so just a few months before, Pinkberry received the seal of yogurt from the National Association. So apparently at that time, they were technically meeting the 10 million cells per gram.
Ah, so it sounds like Leonard was just trying to act smart in front of his date.
Yeah, or he wasn't keeping up with current events. Current yogurt events.
Which are very important.
Yeah. I mean, I like yogurt.
Well, a side note on Pinkberry, I don't know about 2008, but now I hopped on the website. There's actually a ton of dairy-free options because Leonard said that he couldn't have any. So maybe around that time he couldn't have any. But right now, if you are lactose intolerant, you can eat at Pinkberry.
Oh, nice.
They use coconut milk. So the flavors that they have: chocolate, coconut, cold brew, lemon cream, salted caramel, strawberry, peach passion, and tropical mango.
Oh, yeah. You know, that reminds me. Have you ever had a Next Level Burger?
No, is that a chain?
It is. I think it's only like in the Pacific Northwest, but the one near me is in a Whole Foods. And at first I thought it was just like a random Whole Foods thing, but apparently they're in other places too. But they it's all vegan. Um, they have milkshakes and they do it out of coconut milk or soy milk, or they can do half and half. And I tell you, they are some of the best milkshakes I've ever had in my life. They compete with real dairy milkshakes. And they have all, you can make whatever you want, but chocolate chip milkshakes, mint chocolate chip milkshakes, chocolate peanut butter, all sorts of stuff. But oh man, so for Pinkberry to have non-dairy ice cream options, I support that. I bet they're delicious.
I'm sure they are. Oh, as you mentioned burger, I totally forgot to mention at the end of the episode, Ryan and I are going to have a side conversation about The Menu.
Menu.
If anyone's seen The Menu, it is out on HBO right now. And that's all I'm going to say about it until the end, because if no one cares about it, you could just stop.
Turn off the podcast and give us a 5-star review. Take that extra minute.
All right, well, we'll save that for the end of the episode.
Okay.
But to complete this IQ points, I had to look into what carrageenan is.
Yeah.
It is exactly what Leonard said. It's an additive used to thicken, emulsify, and preserve food and drink. It's a natural ingredient that comes from red seaweed, also known as Irish moss.
Oh.
And I was going to ask you, Irish moss, isn't that a hop?
It's not a hop, but it's an additive that some brewers use to basically what it does is it attaches to sediment in the brew, the wort or whatever, and it attaches and gives it like density and pulls it down so that all the sediment settles out of the liquid, making the beer clearer at the end stage.
That's what it was. I remembered that term Irish moss from my brewing days, but I couldn't remember exactly what it was.
And I thought this was interesting because I always thought Irish moss was agar, which is also derived from seaweed, but apparently agar is a little bit different. And we've talked about this in another episode where it's a vegan option to gelatin. So apparently carrageenan is similar, but not as gelatin-like. This is more like you said,
It'll thicken it,
thicken. It's a thickener,
emulsify.
emulsify.
So it's the
That's the word.
difference between like pudding and Jello.
Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
my understanding. But we might have some experiments.
Mm. More Irish moss, more beer.
Some gelitified grasshoppers, if you know what I
Oh
mean.
well.
Well.
All right, that's it for the first IQ point.
That was a good IQ point. That was a good way to
Yeah.
start off the season.
Yep, with Pinkberry.
Pinkberry. And then Penny points out, well, that didn't really answer my question. I was wondering if you wanted some. And no, he doesn't. He's lactose intolerant. Glad they got that taken care of on the first date. Although I think she already knew that. So I don't think she needed
I feel
to.
like if you, I mean, you'd think that she would take allergens more serious for work being a food industry worker, that she would actually remember, because I feel like most people that aren't in the industry, if you hear someone's like allergic to a certain food, you'll take it in at that moment, but then you'll kind of forget about it. But then like
Yeah.
as a server, it's like, well, you should be very mindful of people's allergens.
And at the same time, just being a decent person, like it's polite to always ask. And I know with my partner, she has a lot of allergies, and she'll come to dinner with my parents, and on one stage, my mom's like offering, like, "Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want to try this?" And she's like, "No, I can't have any of it." And my dad's position is he just completely stops asking her what she wants, says she'll take care of herself. Some people find that rude because it's like, well, you're not like offering or saying, "Can I help you with something?" or "Can I make something for you?" But at the same time, she has so many allergies, you just can't cater to everything. So
And it's probably hard to keep track too.
yeah, I took it as Penny may have known his issue is lactose intolerance, but was being polite anyway, saying, "Oh, I feel bad eating this in front of you."
Yeah, I guess, yeah. They probably should have chosen a dessert that they could both do.
Yeah.
But
Well, technically, Pinkberry has the coconut.
yeah.
He could have done something. This is Leonard's fault.
Well, maybe not in 2008.
Oh, that's true. We can't know for sure.
Oh no,
Oh,
the
no.
baby's starting to wake up.
Oh,
So if you
no.
can hear that,
A little cooing.
I'm gonna try to. We can
Sure.
try to make it another half hour because Christina's taking a nap right now.
Oh, yeah. We got it.
We got this. All right. I'll let you dive into the rest of the scene.
Okay. So we go from them talking about the Pinkberry to them sharing a kiss, but Leonard realizes that there's a camera watching them. Like, not even a discreet camera. It looks like a little R2D2 attached above the elevator. And he keeps pushing her away. And it becomes obvious that it's probably somebody watching them. And we see the camera kind of zoom in on her cleavage. And of course, our first thought is this has got to be Howard. We don't know that for certain, but somebody's spying on them, probably Howard. And then Leonard pushes her a little bit away to try to get out of the view of the camera and says, "Do you want to go inside?" And Penny says, "We might be moving too fast." And they kind of start what the episode is about if they're moving too fast, how fast is too fast, and why she might feel like they're going too fast. And I kind of went into another IQ point. In fact, it's kind of a two-parter. We can count it as one, but what is the traditional speed? And if it's healthy to slow down if you're going too fast in a relationship. And what I found was, according to pretty much a bunch of the general consensus, I was thinking of consensus online about the speed of a relationship is that it depends from person to person, and it's completely up to you and your values and your emotional well-being. but at the same time, some planning is probably important and not necessarily what you do on what date, like a third date, sleep together, fourth date, backdoor action or whatever. That's not the plan. More about like life goals and values. If you plan to have kids, how old you want to be when you have kids, if you want to get married, careers, family, stuff like that.
Yeah, I thought backdoor was something very different, which should also be a discussion.
Yes. Always discuss that before just entering that back door. So the other part of this was when to sleep together, and if slowing down is good or bad in terms of physical relations. And I looked up a couple different websites, but bold.com says that when somebody says they want to slow down, they gave like 10 reasons, and only one of those reasons was that they actually want to break up. Most of the reasons regarded looking for red flags, being afraid that this isn't the right relationship and wanting to make sure that there's no problems, working on themselves, knowing that they have issues and they don't want to necessarily commit too much, knowing they have to fix problems on themselves, and several others. And then I went to menshealth.com, which discussed some scientific findings from the Journal of Sex Research. Seems like a fun journal. Talking.
I wonder if they're hiring.
Right. I could work for them. Well, first of all, this Men's Health article brought up the Sex in the City 3-date rule, that you have to wait till the third date to have sex. But according to this journal, that took about 11,000 unmarried adults, they suggested that 51% waited several weeks, more than just a few weeks, to have sex. So several dates. 38% had sex between the first date and just a couple of dates. And then I'm kind of confused on the rest of them, but 11% had sex before the first date. So they had sex and then started going on dates. But apparently an issue with the study was, how do you define date? And so in the case of Leonard and Penny, it's like they've hung out several times before, but not really with a romantic agenda. So this is the first romantic date, but at the same time, would it be considered the first date if they slept together because they've known each other for so long? And so it's kind of confusing, but it all comes down to how the individuals perceive themselves, the relationship, their emotions, and their views on sex. So there is no one size fits all for when to have sex. It's just, being happy with yourself and what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
But I did find that interesting that she says slow down, but they know each other. So it's like, how do you slow down when you're already really good friends,
Yeah, I guess there is a different switch from turning it on and the romantic switch on and off and everything, because at that point, even last season, Penny even said like, well, I know that Penny had or I know that Leonard has a crush on me. So she always kind of knew, but then she never even considered him as a viable option. So she never even thought about it. So for her, this is really like fresh. But for Leonard, it's not fresh.
That he's always kind of seen her romantically, right? Or the possibility. This kind of reminds me of Friends with Ross and Rachel, where the first time they hook up, she bursts out laughing every time he touches her, right?
Yeah, because they have such a long history.
Yeah, and she's like, it's Ross touching me. It's just weird to get used to. So, yeah, interesting stuff. All right, so that was my IQ point. And she leaves, and Leonard goes into the apartment. Of course, we see Raj and Howard are manipulating the camera. And they try to screensaver it, right? Well, we're doing nothing. And Leonard goes, Sheldon, how could you let them do this? And I love this so much so that I'm going to give Sheldon a point. Sheldon gets 1 point. So 1 for, I think he says, they exploited the fact that I don't care. My complete lack of interest.
That was one of my laugh out loud moments. Like I loved that line too. Just it's so Sheldon.
And this reminds me of I started school back up this week teaching, and I had a student ask me in the middle of my night class. He was like, "What are we actually going to be doing in here?" It's an English class, so we're reading literature and writing essays and making arguments. But he goes, "Are you going to like read us bedtime stories?" And I just look at him. I'm like, "Do you want me to?" It's like, I don't care if that's what you want. I'll cater to it, but it's not what I was planning on.
The real answer is, bro, you're not going to do very well in this class.
Yeah, whatever, but as long as the students are happy, give me those 5-star reviews.
Yeah, it's all about them 5 stars.
All right, so they move on, and they're talking about going slow, and Howard mentions, well, Howard and Raj are saying that they're documenting the relationship so that future generations can figure out what went wrong with the relationship. And Leonard's like, nothing's going to go wrong. And they're like, she has to slow down. Something's wrong.
Yeah, if anything, they should be documenting how a guy like Leonard even scored a date in the first place.
Seriously, I mean, that's a big step. In fact, Howard says something else later. I don't want to ruin it, but he's having trouble getting dates with living women. So let's put it that way.
Well, we all know why.
Yeah. And it kind of brings up Leonard is fine on just winging the relationship.
Yeah.
Versus planning. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts? Are you more of a winger with relationships or a planner?
I think in the beginning it's always helpful to wing it. I think in my earlier youth, I was definitely a planner. I was definitely like the romantic type, where I would kind of fantasize of what our future would be like and where we would want to go. And when that would constantly epically fail in my face and blow up and everything like that, I kind of just learned like, okay, you got to be cool. Just easy breezy. You got like, and then hey, got married, so I must have done something right.
It worked out.
Yeah.
Roll with the punches. I kind of
show her how aloof you are. You don't care. Like, it's easy breeze. Whatever.
I'm sorry. What was your name again? Ryan, we've been on 4 dates. And you are?
Have we met before? You look familiar.
I'm very aloof. Ha
ha ha. What about you?
I feel like there's a part of me that wants to plan out. I like you, thinks ahead. And I do like feeling safe knowing like relationships are going somewhere. We're on the same track. But at the same time, I feel like that gives a lot of stress and expectations for a relationship. And especially in the beginning, I would say that it's better to have fun and just take breathers and roll with it. Don't have too many expectations.
I also think it's about communication and just valuing the other person's wishes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess I'm the planner in my relationship, and my wife is like, she is like such a free spirit.
Yeah.
Like, it probably in another world, she might be a hippie, you know? It's like, she's like that, like, go with the flow and everything like that. So even to this day, whenever I plan stuff, she gets a kind of like a little irate. Like, why do we have to plan stuff? Like, why are we like, you're being so rigid? It's like, baby, I'm just talking about breakfast.
And it's going to be a 5-hour breakfast starting with
20 courses.
20 courses.
But yeah, it's all about that communication. Like, once I learned that about her, I just learned to just plan in my head. So I plan everything in my head, and then I just execute it. And to her, it's spontaneous, but to me, it's planned.
It's working out on both levels.
Nice.
Yeah. So I get 1 point for being like Leonard here too, because he mentions things went pretty well, that he didn't have to resort to his conversation starters. And I've actually brought conversation starters on dates before. So
like in card form, or like a little handwritten note to yourself, or did discreetly write it on your phone?
It was a list in my notebook, and I typically bring journals with me. Just I like to write stuff. So yeah.
I'm documenting my own date right now, but I'm not a serial killer.
Yeah.
So I even wrote that. It's even the cover of my notebook. I'm not a serial killer.
I've starred and underlined it, not serial killer. Which is also one of my conversations. Are you a serial killer? Yeah, so where do we go from there?
Well, Howard says that it's more like Leonard says that he's slowing down because it's like a good meal, but then Howard says it's more like a bad fish, which is the name of the episode.
The bad fish paradigm.
Yep.
I like this because he refers to it later as like, I am the bad fish.
But, yeah. Like, oh my god.
But yeah, it's the notion of you want to slow down if you have bad fish and just stop eating it completely.
Well, then Howard tells him to think harder, gets kind of creepy and offensive. Like, what'd you do? Like, what did you say? And then it goes into like what Howard says on dates, which never goes well. The waitress is hot. Think she'll come home with us? How much does your mom weigh? Well, then they say, let's go to the tape to figure out where it all goes wrong. And that actually goes into one of my IQ points.
Oh, nice.
So this kind of goes hand in hand with another episode, which gets like even creepier. This goes into like another episode. So when it kind of goes hand in hand. But I wanted to know, what does the law say about secretly recording people?
Oh.
Because like because Howard, it was obviously Howard, and Raj just kind of went along with it, but it was obviously Howard just being a big creeper.
Yeah.
But then it was like, well, what are the punishments? What are the ramifications of recording someone illegally or without their consent and things like that? So I found this on laws101.com. And there's a huge difference between recording audio versus film.
Ooh.
Yeah, so there are a lot more laws in terms of audio, which makes sense because it's more about the government doing like wiretapping or you secretly recording a conversation and things like that. So there's a lot. So audio is a lot stricter, video is a lot looser. But I'll go with audio first. It's different state by state, but more often if someone's being recorded without their consent, it's considered void in the law. So that's why whenever you call like a company or a customer service, they always make that disclaimer, you're being recorded, because they have to. And so basically, if we record a conversation, like if you're trying to like get like find some dirt on someone and you record them secretly, you use that against them in court or the law, it's going to be null and void.
Yeah.
You can't actually use that. So all conversations in terms of audio need to be consensual, for the most part, state by state.
Unless there's a warrant.
Yep.
Yeah.
So video is also state by state. You are able to video record anybody in a public setting, and they don't have to have... you could record anybody in public as long as they don't have a, in quote, reasonable expectation of privacy, which is very vague.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of case by case. So in that case, they're in the hallway. So there actually isn't really this, in quote, reasonable expectation of privacy.
Correct.
So technically Howard is allowed to. It's just not that kosher.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I worked at the news, interned at a news station, this came up a lot. Like, what could we record? And people would come up and like yell at the video recorder saying, you can't record me. But if you're on public property or like in a public street or a public forum, yeah, technically, most likely you can. And if a video camera is like on a public street recording a house, they can do that, but there's like a fine line between that and then like zooming in through the windows and peeping in at what people are doing inside. So it's a little loose and a little confusing, but
Yep, I actually deep dove what the penalties are. And
ooh,
like I said, this will go hand in hand with the future episode. So when that episode actually comes about, we'll refer back to this. So something for you to look forward to.
woohoo!
So I was wondering what the penalties are
Yeah.
for doing this illegally.
What's the jail
So-
time?
Yep. So in a civil lawsuit, the offender could pay hefty fines or potential jail time. So on the lowest level, it's classified as a gross infringement on your privacy and can initiate a lawsuit. If you win, it's just more monetary. If you go to the next level, the state could push for criminal charges. It could be a misdemeanor and could get a short-term prison time. Then the highest level is on the federal front. Consequences get more punitive. It could be a 5-year jail sentence, plus a $500 fine, which seems kind of low. Only a $500 fine. So here's your 5 years of prison and a kick in the crotch, $500 fine.
$500. Can I just pay double that and not go to jail?
Yeah.
Wow.
But they're in California, so I deep dove what the California laws are specifically. So I found this on stimulaw.com and also losangelescriminallawyer.pro. I've never heard of a .pro before, so I don't know if I could take it serious. And recordinglaw.com. So in terms of audio, California has some of the strongest laws in the country on wiretapping. All parties must have consent on being recorded. If not, it's a crime. California is a 2-party state, so that's the whole consensual thing. And depending on the situation, it could be a misdemeanor or a felony. So a misdemeanor, it's up to a year in prison and a fine of $2,500. And a felony, the max penalty is 3 years in prison. And if you are a repeat offender, the fine goes up by $10,000.
Ouch. That's a lot heftier than 500.
Yeah, it's definitely so I think the 500 must be like an average. But in California, since it's like one of the more harshest states in terms of this. And then in terms of video, in California, it is illegal for anyone to invade a person's privacy while the person concerned is inside of a bedroom, bathroom, changing room, fitting room, dressing room, or tanning booth, or in any place where he or she has a reasonable expectation of privacy by looking through a hole or opening or viewing using a concealed or unconcealed instrument, meaning camera recorder, unmanned aircraft system,
telescope, microscope.
Yep. For example, if you're sharing an apartment with another person, it is illegal to install a camera for the purpose of recording your roommate while he or she is in the bathroom or bedroom, because that is their private area.
But the living room's free game.
Pretty much, since there is no reasonable expectation of privacy in the shared communal area. So that is part of California Penal Code 647, paragraph 1, section 3. Or section 3, section 1, paragraph 3. I don't know how to read that.
One of those.
Yeah, something like that. So additionally, no recording through or under a person's clothes without consent. Had to throw that in there.
That sounds fair.
Yep. So the exceptions of this is where there is no expectation of privacy, such as a public park. You can record someone if you feel threatened or if they're in the act of committing a crime, as extortion, bribery, kidnapping, any felony involving violence against another person. So whip out those cameras.
But can you can't do that in a bathroom. So if somebody's killing somebody in a bathroom, can you whip out a camera?
Ooh. Time to ask the lawyers at the .pro.
We have to be prepared for this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to record it, but then I realized I was in a bathroom.
Are you sure you're not a serial killer?
That kind of reminds me, not the serial killer part, but the wiretapping. I watched a documentary. It was quite a long one. It was a several part miniseries. I think it was PBS on Prohibition, and how one of the first wiretapping cases that became a huge case in how we deal with wiretapping was, I believe, the feds in Seattle uh, kind of stormed this guy's house, and he was like one of the big suppliers of alcohol in the area. I have to refresh my memory on this, but I believe he used to be a cop, and then he kind of broke bad, right, and started selling liquor and had all the connections. And the feds came in and got his like little black book and started calling everybody in it, saying, "Hey, I'm going to throw a rager. Come on over." And as they came in to party and drink alcohol, they just arrested them one by one. And he's
That
like,
kind of reminds me of To Catch a Predator.
"Yes, welcome. So, what are you doing here?"
So what brings you here? Why do you
Not
have that Mike's Hard Lemonade?
not the alcohol, that's for sure. I was just stopping by. All right, so is that all the...
That's all I got.
That's a good IQ point. All right, so the credits roll, and we are in the laundry room with Sheldon folding his shirts. And at first, I was kind of laughing. I'm like, oh, he's using a folding tray to fold his shirts. But Penny comes in, and, well, first of all, we have, man, both sides of this. A point for Penny, because Sheldon says, don't use that washer, don't use that washer, that one's having problems. And she just throws everything into one washer. And I used to be a real big, between pots and pans and dishes and clothes, I'm like, if they can't survive in a washing cycle in my house, they don't deserve to be in my drawer. So I'm 1 point like Penny. I wash most things except for whites. I do whites a little bit separately sometimes.
Yeah, we're definitely a lot more Sheldon-like in my household. I was definitely a Penny back in the day, but then once I got married, and after talking to like my wife about this, she kind of educated me on the gentle cycle versus this detergent and that detergent. And then once I had my kid, I had no idea that there was such a big difference in detergents. Like apparently, like for anybody out there that doesn't have if you have a child, you already know this. But if you don't have a child, you need to have a certain non-scented detergent. Otherwise, the baby's skin is so sensitive that like he's gonna get a rash. So I was using like I didn't know this, so I was just gonna do like regular detergent, like the scented kind, Kirkland brand. And then my wife was like, whoa, you can't do that. He's gonna get a rash. You have to use non-scented.
Oh,
So then
no.
so now we have all these separate loads of like what we can like, so our rags can like be the normal stuff because it doesn't matter, but his clothes and our clothes need to be non-scented, and it's like a whole thing. But then also there are certain clothes that need a better detergent that uses woolite because you don't want the color to fade.
Yeah.
So like that, so we have so many separations of laundry. It's like such, God, like our house is basically a laundromat.
My big thing now is I've in recent years have gotten a couple of sweaters that I really like, and I either wash them on gentle by themselves just because I like them so much, or they're like one of the only things I dry clean, that and maybe a suit jacket here and there. But other than that, everything goes in together. But maybe I'll change over time. But right now, it's like, yeah, I have the sweater from Ireland that I adore. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to ruin that. So it gets its own style and its own routine.
You could be super extra like us and get a laundry bag. Meaning
Ooh.
it's a separate bag that you put your clothes in, and then you put it in the wash, and it protects it from getting like beaten up.
Oh.
Yeah, we're super extra in our house.
Someday I'll grow up, but for now, 1 point like Penny. I put everything on normal, and then I do an extra 2 washes, rinses, because I don't like the smell of detergent. I don't know. Some people are like, it's supposed to smell like clean flowers. I'm like, it gives me a headache. I don't like it. So
Oh, I love it. One of the best things in the world was we do fresh laundry, and then my dog jumps into the pile of clothes, rolls around in it, and then she starts smelling like clothes, like fresh clothes. Oh, it was so great.
Everybody smell fresh.
But now we're non-scented, so it smells like nothing.
Nothing. What good are you, dog? You smell like nothing to me.
Ah.
And so, yeah, Penny asks if she can ask Sheldon a question and asks if Leonard has ever dated a regular girl. And of course, Sheldon mentions the woman he dated that had a PhD in French literature, right? She's like, what's regular about that? Well, she was French and it was literature. I took a little offense at that because literature is its own right, a study, a field of study, but
you know what? If you ever meet Sheldon in real life, he will look down at you.
Of course he will. But he looks down on it. Howard and Raj. In fact,
That's true.
He convinced Raj that he could be replaced with AI, right? So
yep.
And then we get to a point where I get one point like Sheldon where Penny she's helping him fold his stuff and she folds his socks, but she wraps them. And he looks at them confused, unwraps them, and folds them again. And I've gotten into arguments in my household about how socks go. I never wrap them. I hate my socks being wrapped together. In fact, the only reason I do that is if they're dirty and I'm camping, I'm trying to keep them together. So I do not.
So do you just throw them in a pile?
Yeah, I mean, I stack them with their appropriate counterpart and fold them if they're long enough.
So you just like take them, lay them out, and then fold them in half and put them down?
Yeah. And I've had to unfold and refold and unwrap and refold socks numerous times because I fold socks instead of wrap.
So I'm more of like a Penny in this situation. I definitely wrap my socks together. And that's more of like I want to keep them together because I fold laundry in another location. So I'll fold them, throw them into a basket, and then bring it back up to like the drawer. So if I know it's going to shuffle around and I know it's going to... Because if I just folded it like you, by the time I make it to like the bedroom and the drawer, it's going to be a shit show.
That's fair. What do you do when you're like traveling and you have dirty socks?
I put them in a separate bag.
Separate bag?
Like a grocery bag and everything. Because I do that with all of my dirties.
I do that too, but I wrap them up just so that they stay together, and I know that like I can.
Why would you need to if they're dirty?
I don't know. Just it's a good system, and I like the system.
Okay, serial killer.
So, anyways, we got 1 point like Sheldon, serial killer with the socks. So we get to Penny kind of filling Shelley in on her fears that Leonard's going to get bored with her because she's not as smart as his other dates and admits to not even finishing community college. And
this goes into another laugh out loud moment.
Yeah. Doesn't Sheldon kind of say, well, it's community college, right?
Yeah, he's like, you thought the opposite of stupid loser was community college graduate?
Yeah.
And then Penny goes on to say, hey, there are a lot of successful people that are community college graduates. And Sheldon responds, yeah, but you're neither.
You're neither. Which was a fair point, but I teach at a community college, so I would have fought Sheldon on this one a little tooth and nail. Because I really get down to the point that it's not the school you go to, it's the teachers you have and your own personal motivation to educate yourself. It's like what's that? Goodwill Hunting, right? Where technically the janitor's the smartest person in the whole joint, and he educated himself. So Sheldon's being a little too close-minded there, but it is great when he says, you're neither to Penny.
Yeah. Well, this goes into an IQ point.
Yeah.
I looked at the list of the most successful people without a degree or went to college.
Yeah.
So, as Penny was saying, there are a lot of successful people out there that did not go to college, or they were community college graduates, or they're dropouts.
Mm-hmm.
So, I found this on developgoodhabits.com. The article is called 32 Successful People Who Didn't Go to or Finish College. And I just looked at the top 10. So, number one, Bill Gates. He was a Harvard dropout after 2 years. Number two, Mark Zuckerberg. He was also a Harvard dropout. Number three, Steve Jobs. He was a Reed College dropout after 1 semester. Number four, Richard Branson of Virgin Group. He
Huh.
was a high school dropout at 16. I
I
had
didn't
no
know
idea.
that.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Number five, Oprah Winfrey. College dropout after 1 semester. But then later in life, she finished her and got her degree.
I was gonna say some of these people have like honorarium degrees or whatever. They go back and either finish up, or the college just says, you're special enough, we'll give you a degree or whatever. I'm
You're
like,
special.
you're special.
Number six, Michael Dell of Dell Computers. Number seven, Larry Ellison as the CEO of Oracle. Dropped out of University of California after 1 semester. Sergey Brin, co-founder of Google, was a Stanford dropout. Bill Hewlett and David Packard from HP. And number 10, Jack Dorsey, the co-founder of Twitter and Square. He was at NYU and dropped out after 2 years.
Mm.
So you can be very successful and not go to college. And
Absolutely.
I am a pretty firm believer of that. I'm one of those people that went to college and didn't even end up using my degree. So I'm doing something completely unrelated to my to my field. My wife didn't she went to community college but then dropped out and went to beautician school. So we all found success not really using our college education, and a lot of people are like that.
I have to say, a lot of people have trade education, and they make great money. More than I can say most people do with English degrees, which is what I teach. But I can't say that's always the case. But there's other ways to make a living and be successful in life and find happiness. There's not college isn't just the only way.
I feel like it's exactly like what you said earlier, that it's a lot of it has to do with who you have as a teacher and your overall motivation as a person. Because most things I'm learning, like trades, you can really learn on your own as long as you're self-motivated. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we started a podcast. Granted, we're not a success or anything, at least hopefully not yet,
We
but we
still have no
learned
idea what we're doing.
yeah. But we looked into audio, we trained ourselves, we bought the equipment, we figured it out. I got into culinary. I don't have any formal training, but I eventually made it to executive chef status, and that's just from sheer motivation, the sheer will to like want to strive and want to do well. So I just trained myself.
And try and keep trying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that explains. So I never ever really talked about that in the podcast. That's actually why I'm trying to like always turn this into a food podcast, because I do have a chef background. I'm not doing it anymore, but kind of, sort of. Well, but
so
I'm
let's
not going to
talk
get
about food.
Yeah, we will when we talk about the menu.
And this goes back to back with I had an IQ point too, but this one was with Sheldon not wanting to keep secrets because he's like he's not gonna he's terrible at keeping secrets. And I looked at forensiccolleges.com and they had a pretty decent list, but some of the top ways of knowing somebody's lying is their speech patterns change up, non-congruent gestures. In fact, it goes into if they're saying something positive but shaking their head no, or saying something negative but nodding yes, something like that. Gestures that are not adding up. not saying enough, which counters with the next one, which is saying too much. So if they go overboard with explaining, or if they decline of explaining thoroughly or explaining at all, both ways could be signs of lying. And then fifth one was vocal tone, basically changing pitches and voice. And we see Sheldon kind of do this when he meets Leonard again, when he meets back at the apartment, because his speech patterns kind of change up, his vocal tone, his gestures, he starts getting kind of twitchy, right?
Yeah, I'm actually a terrible liar.
I'm awful. I'm awful.
It's not a bad quality. Like every time I try to like hide something from my wife, it's nothing major. It's like I got you a present and I'm trying to like conceal it and everything. I'll just start like giggling for like no reason, and she's like, "All right, what are you hiding?" I was like, "Damn it."
I found that I think I'm a pretty good tall tale teller. There we go.
Exaggerator.
Yeah, exaggerator. And so it's great because everything's based on truths, and it becomes like how much is exaggerated, and like people know talking to me like, oh, it's probably exaggerated a little bit, but you're always surprised where and when I'm exaggerating, or if I am. I might have told you this, but I was telling a friend, mutual friend, you know him, about how we were having a guys' weekend at another friend's cabin, and somebody brought out a gun, and I'm like, it was an elephant gun. And he brought it out, and he's like, okay, we've all been drinking. I've checked it, and it's fine, but could somebody else check it? And I ran inside because it was pointed at me, and they checked it, and they're like, yeah, there is a bullet in the chamber, and pulled it out. What I left out was that the whole thing was on safety the whole time. So, no real danger. And we weren't drinking that much, but we were drinking. There were safety precautions. And so another friend saying, it wasn't as scary as Ryan's making it out to be. I go, what type of gun was it? He goes, oh, yeah, it was an elephant gun. So...
Yeah, but still, like, it's never safe. Even like the most experienced person, when you're under the influence or even a few drinks, you really shouldn't pull it out.
Yeah. And it wasn't really, it was kind of in my general direction, but it wasn't like they were pulling the trigger at me. It was kind of like, once it came out, I'm like, I'm out of here. It's too much danger.
Yeah, I mean, accidents happen. You read it about all the time. Like,
I think the big thing was everybody was like shocked because I'm like, yeah, it was this huge elephant gun. And they're like, yeah, sure, Ryan, an elephant gun. And then at the end of the conversation, what type of gun? Oh, yeah, it was an elephant gun.
Yeah, it totally was.
So you never know, like, what I'm exaggerating a little bit here and there. But I can't flat out lie. Like, as soon as I try to lie, like, everybody's like, in fact, we were just playing I had a board game night. We were playing Secret Hitler. And I was very obviously lying. So I just went all in with it and tried to mess with people because I'm like, they can tell I'm lying. So how else can I win this?
So that the game Murder is probably like your nightmare.
Yeah.
Because that's all about lying.
I cannot pull it off. But yeah. So those were the list of lying ways you can tell somebody's lying or keeping a secret. Yeah. And I like the end of this conversation because Sheldon goes, so when did we become friends? That was one of my laugh out louds too, right?
Yeah. The look on Penny's face. Like, I'd love every Penny and Sheldon interaction.
Mm-hmm. And so now we move on to Sheldon's in the hall talking to Leonard, and we don't know the whole conversation, but mentions he can never be Green Lantern, but he could be Batman given the right financial resources and backing.
Yep, I agree with that.
I'm like,
and you just deepen your voice, which was a very big thing in the mid 2000s when Batman Begins came out. It was all about I'm Batman.
But of course, I something he didn't mention is it would have taken some time as well, because didn't Batman, like, between his boyhood and adulthood, he ventured off and did a lot of training, right?
It was a lot of training. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not just the gadgets or anything like that. So
Yeah.
sorry, Sheldon, you can't be
Yeah.
Batman.
If he wants to take 10 years to train, he might, but by that time he's going to be like, what, in his 40s? And it could work. I don't know. Never say never.
Honestly, all the training in the world, Sheldon ain't gonna be Batman.
I don't know. Maybe he could go to college for it. Major in Batman studies.
It's actually a trade school.
You walk across the stage at the end, and everybody goes, I am Batman. I am Batman. As they're graduating. So yeah, where are we?
Enter Penny.
Enter Penny, right?
It gets a little awkward because she's obviously blowing off Leonard.
That's what I have written down. I'm trying to make sense of my notes a little bit. And, oh yeah, they're in the hallway, and Leonard finally admits, I am the bad fish.
Yeah, he asked her out a couple times. Hey, you want to hang out Friday? No. Okay, what about Saturday? Let's just play it by ear. Oh my god, I'm the fish.
I'm the bad fish. And I think this is fair because, like, at what point do you think that they're blowing you off, or at what point, like, are they legitimately busy? Because I've dated people who are just really that busy. But at the same time, if they're interested in you, they make time, right? So
yeah, I've always been in the camp like they'll find time. They even if you're winging it, if they were interested, they will make a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I can't do it this week. I'm busy the next 2 weeks. Can I pencil you in 2 weeks?
Yeah,
and then like, yeah, so.
And it does happen. You know, I've gone on dates at like 3 a.m. because somebody's been so busy, but she was interested in going on a date, so we made it work. So, Sheldon, what do I have here?
I have another laugh out loud moment. It's obvious that Sheldon is very uncomfortable holding the secret. He rushes upstairs. He has some interactions with Leonard, and then Leonard asks, "What's wrong with your face?"
And there we get
Sheldon. And Sheldon says, "There is no reason to bring my looks into this."
I laughed when he leaves and goes, I said good day, sir. I said good day.
I wonder if that was just him or if that was just a reference to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Good day, sir.
Good day, sir. Then we move to the Cheesecake Factory because apparently Sheldon ran from the apartment to the Cheesecake Factory where he goes, I can't keep the secret. I can't do it, right?
Yep.
Release me from my oath. And she's like in the middle of giving the menu to somebody. So she's like, okay, you guys can think about your choices. And he pulls her to the side. And then he says he's going to fold like energy-based de novo protein and
conformational space.
Yes. Did you look into this at all?
A little bit. I still didn't really get it.
Yeah.
Did you do it too?
A little bit. I turned it into a partial because I really the way I understood it was it's just turning in when they're sequencing genomes that they've never sequenced before and there's no reference, they have to start new. So it's kind of turning in the imagery to 3D. Is that what you got?
No, I got actually something different.
Really?
Maybe I looked into the wrong thing, but
I could be off too. It was very confusing.
I got it as it was a reference to biology, and it was the algorithmic process by which protein tertiary structure is predicted from its amino acid primary sequence. But apparently that whole process is unsolved. So it's all theoretical. So I took this as if this was what he was talking about, is because it's unsolved, it's like folding. But that doesn't really make sense. Like it's unresolved, it's unconfirmed. I definitely, now that I'm saying this out loud, I definitely got this wrong.
You know, I broke it up into bits and pieces, and I could like each one I understood by itself, but when I put them together, I could be off too. This one was just is kind of a thing he just threw out there, and I think was a little hard to understand. But I got de novo means to start something new. So when they're sequencing or like collecting data or diagramming, it's a completely new diagram. And then I got that they're using the word folded for transforming the diagram or the imagery to a three-dimensional imagery. And I kept finding these pictures of like squiggly lines. And then it would be the squiggly line, and they're like, we fold it, and we get this three-dimensional chain of amino acids or whatever. And I don't know why they use fold in that as a verb like that. Or
I guess if the amino acids are folding, so he's folding like them.
Yeah. And then I got conformational space is the arrangement of molecules. So basically sequencing a new three-dimensional model. But how they do that, and I don't even know where they like these images had squiggly lines. Where did the squiggly lines come from? Who knows? I don't.
Well, I looked into the other half of what he said, a Renaissance tri-tip.
This one made more sense to me.
Yep. I didn't know what that was, so I had to look it up. A tri-tip is a picture, such as an altarpiece or a carving that has 3 panels side by side. So it actually has a Greek root derived from triptychos, which means having 3 folds.
Mm. I was thinking about this because technically we still have those. They're just the Renaissance ones are mostly the wooden fold-out ones, right? But
Yeah.
we'll see photos or images or paintings that are 3 parts, and I'm pretty sure this is what allows some three-dimensional optical illusions to occur at times, like in comics, where there'll be 3 panels or several panels, and somebody will reach between them, and it will look like somebody's breaking out of the panel. Or if you have a painting on a wall, it kind of makes it look more expansive than if it were just one single image. Some cool stuff with that. I used to have one hanging on my wall when I was living in Nebraska, and I'm like, yes, I love 3-part paintings.
Nice.
But it wasn't from the Renaissance, so it wasn't all the way there.
And it wasn't wooden, so you know what?
Wooden.
Pure garbage.
Well, the frame was wooden. Does that count?
Yes.
Yes.
For the win.
For the win. And we get into a discussion of as soon as something is mentioned, sometimes you're unable to do it because it was mentioned, or you get in your head that you want to do something. You have this uncontrollable urge to do something. But in this case, what happens is Penny goes, just forget the secret. But the fact that she says forget the secret means Sheldon's going to remember it more. In fact, if somebody's told me, like, just forget about the secret, I would be that much more tempted to tell the secret because I was told I can't remember the secret. And for this, I get 1 point like Sheldon because that would eat at me so much more. Where I think some people could be like, "Oh, I'll just forget it." Nope, it would be.
It's like telling someone, "Don't push that button."
Yeah,
and now I have to push that button.
Do you ever watch Ren and Stimpy?
Long ago. I think I was too young for it. It's definitely not.
That's fair.
I don't know how it was meant for children.
I don't think it was.
But it was on Nickelodeon.
Yeah. It was Nicktoons, right? With Rugrats and Doug.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened. But there was an episode where Ren and Stimpy are in outer space, and Ren's kind of losing his mind. And Ren is the Chihuahua, and he tells the cat to watch this big red button. And he goes, watch it and make sure no one presses it. And don't press it yourself. And the cat's like, what happens? He goes, nobody knows. Maybe something good, maybe something bad. But you're going to make sure nobody touches it. And so for the next 2 minutes, the narrator is saying, will Stimpy resist the urge, or is he going to push it? I think he pushes it and they blow up or something. I don't remember. But
we'll go with, he pushes it. Knowing him, he pushed it.
He says to forget the secret.
Furthermore, Sheldon says that he's incapable. He's constitutionally incapable of keeping a secret. And that's why he was refused clearance for a very prestigious government research fellowship at a secret military super collider located beneath a fake agricultural station 12.5 miles east of Traverse City, Michigan. Which you did not hear from me.
Did not hear from me.
So I tried to look into that.
Oh, what'd you find?
So the next IQ point is, where and what is this? So I hopped on Google Maps and I looked at what city is 12.5 miles southeast of Traverse City. And it's Mayfield, Michigan. And from what of course, if it's a secret government one, I'm not going to be able to find it. So if it actually is there, I have no idea. So rip that Band-Aid off. I have no idea if there was an actual secret government facility there. But based off some research and some deep dives,
I was going to say, if we don't come back from this, like after this podcast, if we don't podcast anymore, please don't go to this location.
Do not go to Mayfield, Michigan.
Ryan and Rob disappear after this.
Well, from what I've learned, Michigan itself was very involved in super colliders. It never, well, according to my research, it never got a facility made in the state, or maybe that's the secret. But there was an article that was published 4 days earlier to the airing of this episode from the University of Michigan, stating that 25 researchers from Michigan went to Sweden to work at the Large Hadron Collider. So Michigan is very involved in super colliders.
Interesting.
And then I learned that Michigan was actually one of the contenders for the American Super Collider. So there was consideration of America building a big super collider. So every state was throwing in their name in the hat to like, hey, build it here, build it here. So I found, according to legislator.mi.gov, that Michigan had the Superconducting Super Collider Act, Act 26 of 1987. And this was basically their bid for getting it. Like, okay, if you do it here, we're going to do this. We're going to employ this many people. We're going to study this.
A little quid pro quo. You do this for me, I'll do it for you.
Yeah. So, but apparently Michigan lost. They lost to I'm definitely going to butcher this. It's either pronounced Waxahachie, Texas, or Waxahachie. Wasn't sure if the X is like Oaxacan or something like that.
I was going to say, Rob, you're trying to pronounce Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Where is this place?
Well, it was a city in Texas, and the project in Texas started in 1991. Construction got very far. It was supposed to be more than double the size of the Large Hadron Collider in CERN, but ultimately it was canceled in 1993, mostly for budgetary reasons. And apparently it had a code name of Desertron.
Desertron!
Yeah. So America started building a super collider, but then it just got scrapped.
Because of budget reasons, or so they say.
So they say. Dun, dun, dun. And then Ryan and Rob went missing.
No more podcasts.
Well, as I was researching this, I actually stumbled upon the city website of Traverse City, Michigan. And it actually seems like a really cool place. So, deep dive on Traverse City, Michigan. Apparently, it's the cherry capital of the world. It has its cherry festivals every July. This coming year, it's going to be July 1st through the 8th. And they expect more than 500,000 people. So, here are the top things to do in Traverse City, Michigan. So at one point, Good Morning America named it the most beautiful place in America. It has the
Wow.
Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, has a scenic drive. You can go into the lake, hiking, bike riding, snowshoeing, and a dune climb. They're really into wineries, so they have over 40 wineries.
That's always a
You,
plus.
you're gonna like this. They have a lot of microbreweries.
Oh yeah.
So
That's now we're
every
talking.
year they have something called Beer Week. It's usually November. This past week was the 11th through the 18th. Apparently, CNN Money listed Traverse City as one of America's best beer towns.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that there were beer towns east of the Rockies.
Who'd have thunk?
Who would have known?
Well, apparently they have exceptional dining. Mission came second to California as the more agriculturally diverse state in the United States. So Traverse City has many farm-to-table restaurants. And Bon Appetit named Traverse City one of America's top 5 foodie towns in 2010.
I
And
think we need a road trip.
we should. I'm actually pretty close. I could probably drive there in like under a day. And the last thing is that they have a lot of outdoor recreation, with Traverse City being at the 45th parallel. There are extra hours in the summertime for lots of hiking, fishing, golfing, swimming, and sailing. When winter comes, there's fat bike, cross country skiing. Sorry, that's two different things. There's fat bikes. It's the big tires, so you could actually basically ride in the snow.
Yeah, more traction, right?
Yeah. Cross country skiing, snowshoeing, downhill ski or snowboarding, snow tubing, ice skating, and ice fishing. So Traverse City is a very rich area
Why were
in
they
terms of recreation.
trying to get the particle accelerator or whatever collider there? What was it about that city that they wanted it?
Well, I think it was actually somewhere else.
Oh, it was.
It wasn't actually. Yeah, it was.
Of it.
It was actually south. It was actually a lot more south.
Oh,
whereas Traverse City is more north.
Okay, I gotcha.
So I think they. I mean, knowing the show, maybe they just made it up, or maybe Google just like purged out all information.
The internet has been scrubbed.
Yep.
Oh no!
And so will Ryan soon. And that's my deep dive.
Now I'm scared. All right, so we move on, and they are back at the apartment, and Sheldon has come to his final option for keeping the secret. And he says, "I'm moving out." And Leonard's like, "Why are you moving out?" And he brings up Munchausen trilemma. And I got an IQ point on this. Did you look into this?
I did.
You did?
I just dominated the mic with Traverse City, so I'll let you take this one.
I'll see. I'm like barely above the embarrassment I got over the sequencing, the de novo protein, but I did get some. Let's see. All right, so what we get is a trilemma is having 3 possible options, or instead of dilemmas 2 options, trilemma is 3 options, and it's this notion that, or I should say, it's also called Agrippin trilemma, but it's the notion that, or it's a thought experiment, that nothing can ever be known for certain, for sure. There's no way to absolutely know something for sure. And it's because the way we find truth, or we understand truth, and I think the best example or explanation I got for this was the urbanengine.com, but I looked at several websites to try to understand this notion that when we have an idea and we're saying, why is this true? Why does it rain, or whatever it might be? We have 3 options. to find an answer. One is infinite regress. The second one is circular, basically circular reasoning, circular questioning. And the third one is axiomatic grounding. So the first one is basically where you keep asking questions that kind of fold over on themselves. And so you say, why is this true? Well, it's true because A is true because B is true. B is true because C is true. C is true is because D is true, and D is true because A is true, and back and forth and back and forth. Circular reasoning is pretty similar, where the question being asked, why is A true? Well, A is true because A is true. So something like, why does it rain? Because there's moisture in the air. Why is there moisture in the air? Because it needs to rain. So you keep going around in a loop, and there's actually no logic behind the answer, so you don't know why it's true. And the third one becomes the real essence of how we determine truth, most times logically. But it's this notion that we keep trying to answer the question with as much logic as possible, but no matter what we ask, it will come down to a simple truth that everybody just has to accept. So why does it rain? Well, it rains because there's moisture in the air. Why is there moisture in the air? Because it's getting evaporated from the ocean, and then it's being pulled down. Why is it being pulled down? Because of gravity. Why does gravity pull stuff down? There's no answer. We just accept that gravity is a determining force and accept that we all understand what it is. So with the trilemma, the notion is he's basically telling Leonard there's no way to know for sure why he's moving out. We just have to accept he is moving out.
Very well said. You explained that very well.
Thank you. I tried. I felt embarrassed after the protein biopsy or whatever. That one was hard, but this one, what were your thoughts on it? Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, it was more or less the exact same. I did find the example that of why it was called, or why it's called Munchausen's trilemma. So, background of this I found is that there was this guy named Karl Friedrich Freiherr von Munchausen. Cool name. He was a German baron born in 1720 who had a knack for exaggerating stories. And one particular was when he and his horse got stuck in a swamp. And according to the story, according to him, what he was telling everyone is that he was able to pull himself and his horse out of the swamp merely by pulling at his own hair. So that's kind of where Munchausen trilemma got its name, because of that story. So
that's if you Google this, the picture comes up of somebody trying to do this, and I'm like, why is this picture coming up? But it's exactly that.
Yeah. So we instantly think of logic and science as the reasons his actions are impossible. But if we were to continuously dive deeper into the justifications of this, we will get to a point where we're not able to answer the questions. It's kind of like what you were saying earlier with this trilemma. It's you get to a point where you're almost like, are at a state of unanswerable, where you just have to accept it.
You just accept it because the majority of people have come to terms and accept it too.
Yeah.
But I'm picturing like a little kid who keeps asking why.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Right? Yeah. And at some point, you just there's no answer.
At some point, you just slip them a little NyQuil.
And slip yourself a little NyQuil while you're at it. Yeah. All right, so end of that IQ point. Moving on. Raj and Howard get back from an exhibit and walk in, and this is they're looking at some mummies, and Howard mentions that some of the female mummies were looking kind of hot.
I thought it was the bodies exhibit.
Oh, bodies exhibit.
About.
Oh, is that what?
Yeah.
I was thinking for some reason he said that, and I was thinking the unintentional mummy exhibits where they exhibit mummies that were mummified unintentionally throughout time. But the
Oh,
body exhibit is where they actually have humans like spliced up, right?
yeah,
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 like almost like glass or something or
yeah.
such.
Which I've never been to, but I've heard it's very fascinating.
I've
I
never been
don't,
to it either.
I don't think it's up my alley though.
I think I could appreciate it. Maybe not in the same way Howard appreciated it, but
Well, you're a serial killer. That's why.
yeah, that's why. I need to know how can I dissect those bodies.
Yeah. Well, how am I gonna get rid of this body?
So that's when Leonard or not Leonard, Sheldon walks out and Howard's like, "Wow, I didn't think he'd be that offended by a little necrophilia."
Yeah, a
I'm
little,
like,
just a
"Whoa."
little innocent necrophilia joke.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert: there are no innocent necrophilia jokes.
There, that's man, Howard, you that wow, left me without words. That's all I'm gonna say. Uh, and they mention, oh yeah, Sheldon. Actually, he went to pack right, and they're talking about things Sheldon doesn't like, and that they ask, "Did you make fun of trains?" I like that line because I don't think it's come forward that Sheldon likes trains, but apparently he does.
I guess this is the first mention of it. He loves trains.
Man, that's probably going to be a point. I didn't put it for this one because it didn't got.
You love trains?
I love trains. If I had space, I would have a model train hobby. I love it. I love the trains. I love the little setup. I love decorating it. I love making them go through mountains.
Okay, help me out here. I've heard like this with, I don't know if it's just pop culture and TV shows and movies, but I've always seen like stuff like this where people love trains. It's kind of like sometimes it's throwaway lines, sometimes they deep dive into it, but I don't get it. So enlighten me. What is so great about trains?
I don't know. You know, maybe it's a little bit of nostalgia because it reminds us of what we would say a simpler time, right? It's definitely simpler, easier than air travel these days. Um, but also, I think part of it is the sound they make, the way they look, the notion that you're able to get on and like part of the journey is part of the adventure with a train, where an airplane it's so fast and you're just like forced to sit there. With train you get up and like move around a little bit and go to like the whole thing is part, like a train trip is a vacation to me, kind of like a cruise, right? Or what I would imagine a dirigible or a blimp ride, if those ever came to fruition without exploding. I imagine like being on a blimp and like hanging out and vacationing while you're traveling would be amazing. But trains, it's, you know, it's that sound, it's knowledge that you're moving and seeing the world around you unfold and being like present in it, but also moving and like going through scenery that like you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. Like I said, going through mountains, I guess we have roads in America, but there's countries going to like, from pictures I see, like train tracks going through like Sweden or Norway. It's just incredible. Uh, with that said, I have been on trains that have been horrifying. It's I once went on a train from Budapest to Romania to, I can't remember the town of Romania, but it was an overnight train, and it was, yeah, overnight train. So like we slept on the train, and there was no food to be purchased. Like they didn't have a food car or vending machines, and we were told to bring subs on because there would be no food. And I'm glad we were told that because we thought, oh, there'd be a food cart. Uh, the room smelled like urine. Everything in the room smelled like urine. There was a little sink that really smelled like urine. There was a bathroom at the end of the car that smelled like something more than urine. I slept above the covers, and in the middle of the night, soldiers got on board and pounded on the door, and were yelling at us to show our passports. And it was because we're transferring countries, but it was still terrifying. Like to be woken up in the middle of the night in a strange little car room that smells like urine, and somebody yelling at you in a language you don't understand. Uh, yeah, that I guess if that had been my initial impression of trains, I would not like trains, but I always imagined trains to be like, was it Murder on the Orient Express, where everybody has like a cocktail or a whiskey and they're all sitting luxuriously mapping and planning, and it just all of it's very awesome. So did that enlighten you at all about love for trains?
A little bit. It is a little scary doing it out of the country then, but you've convinced me to look into a train ride domestically.
This is good. In Alaska, they have ones with like glass roofs, so you sit up and like you can see the sky and everything around you. It's awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Right?
Okay, all right.
There's
we should
cool
do
trains.
that. Screw Traverse City. Let's do that.
And they're getting like bullet trains that are like as fast as air travel. Like maybe not as fast, but when you include time to park and security time and layovers and delays, like trains they're getting really fast.
Isn't there one from like Seattle to Portland now that does it in like like an hour and a half or something like that?
I think
something
so.
crazy?
Yeah, I've heard people take that and they say it's great to like for like day drinking. Like you take the train and start drinking in the morning, and then like hang out in Portland and drink, and like stay the night and come back the next day on the train, and it's just a whole vacation.
Okay, you convinced me. Like, I guess from the passenger perspective, I'm understanding it, but then the engineering side, I'm not an engineer, so I don't really care.
That's fair. I'm thinking of the bullet trains I took in Japan, where I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, "Do you feel it at all?" But it's the notion of theory of relativity, right? That you're moving the same speed as a train, so you don't feel it, but the scenery is just kind of going by very quickly.
It's kind of like how we're on Earth, that we're traveling 1,600 kilometers per hour or something like that, and we don't feel it.
Exactly. We would be none the wiser. All right, so and I do like.
I wrote down the rest of the things. Apparently, Sheldon's oh no nos.
Oh, what are his no nos?
So when they're trying to figure out why Sheldon is moving out, they make they go back and forth of the things that apparently Sheldon doesn't like.
I just picked up on the trains one because I love trains.
So they asked, did he change the contrast or brightness to the TV?
Yeah.
Did he take a Band-Aid off in front of him? Did he buy generic ketchup? Which I stand by. Don't buy generic ketchup.
No. In fact, the more like the fancier ketchup I get, the more it ruins ketchup for me, because I know like that's something I see a quality difference in. I think there's a brand called like Portland brand ketchup is amazing, and I can eat Heinz, but I know when I have quality ketchup, it's like wow.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. Forget to rinse the sink. Talk to him through a bathroom door. Adjust the thermostat. Cook with cilantro. Pronounce the T in often. And then at the end, did you make fun of trains?
Did you make fun of trains? Off 10.
Off 10.
So yeah, Sheldon pops back up, and apparently he's got a pre-packed disaster backpack.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if this was the same thing as his earthquake kit.
I don't think it is. I think it was something else, but it might be, attached, because I was thinking that too. And he says, oh, the government recommends it, but also Sarah Connor.
Well, if anyone's interested in the earthquake kit, we break that down in episode 7, The Dumpling Paradox, so you should check that out.
Good one.
Self-plug over. I bet you did some research on this.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Oh, never mind then.
No, never mind.
Well then, moving on.
If they want to know, they can go back to the earthquake one. I'm sure it's about the same.
I'm sure it's the exact same.
Maybe this one has a couple pairs of underwear. Sheldon says that he's going to go live with some friends, and Howard runs out, right?
Another laugh out loud moment.
That made me laugh. And then Raj's response is, right, he starts off by saying, it's too small. And Sheldon mentions the next IQ point. Although this is one that I made it a partial because it's kind of above my head. But he says, isn't hosting guests an aspect of, I'm going to butcher this, minutia yana? Did you get this at all?
I missed this one. I realized this. I was reviewing my notes earlier today, and then I realized I forgot to do this one. But it was something that I just missed.
It became clear to me that it gets into some religious studies, but my understanding is Yana, Yajna, is a Hindu ritual. You know, the sites I saw said mainly in front of a fire. And there are many throughout different doctrines and different practices. But this is one of five main ones that basically states, what is it? Yeah, the Hindu householder should make sacrifices regularly in terms of money and food and water to those less fortunate and helping others out. And so he's kind of playing on this religious doctrine that isn't it your responsibility to help somebody who's less fortunate than you because you have means to help them out. But again, this the more I looked into it, the more there was to understand, and I'm like, I'm not going to do this justice at all. So I'm just saying that he's on to something. I just don't know.
And of course, it's Sheldon that's pointing it out for his own benefit, because now all of a sudden he's the less fortunate.
And then Raj says exactly what I would hope Raj would say. What does he say? Trains are stupid.
Like, I hate trains.
And he goes, no, you don't. He's like, no, trains are awesome.
Like, oh, damn it. Caught me.
I love that because trains are awesome. Like, yes, trains are awesome, and I can't lie.
So, all right, next scene.
Oh, I was going to add that Raj and Shelley walk out, and Leonard says this could work as he lays down in Sheldon's spot, right?
Oh, yeah. That was a great moment.
I'm like, yeah, I picked up that scene. Like, oh, yeah. So they're in Raj's apartment and mentions that the apartment is an old watch factory. And I actually had the same thought as Sheldon. I just wasn't worried about it because I'm sure that the radium was cleaned up. But you guys, aren't you worried about the radium? And apparently, what's her name? Joey King is in a movie called Radium Girls, where it used to be a job where women would paint the hands of watches with radium so that they would glow in the dark. And nobody told them that radium is radioactive and caused extreme forms of cancer and killed everybody. So Raj was kind of like, no, I didn't think about it till now.
I actually did a little bit of a deep dive on this one.
Yeah, what'd you get?
Yeah, I did an IQ point because I didn't know about any of this. So I was like, like
this is terrifying.
Yeah. So the IQ point is, are luminous dials on watches radioactive? So I found this on wristwatchreview.com and gearpatrol.com. So radium. Radium is a highly dangerous and radioactive substance, and repeated use or exposure is very dangerous. It could lead to devastating diseases, jaw and stomach cancers, bone fractures, and anemia, and death. So it's like you said.
Yeah.
And apparently the use of radium to create luminous watch faces and dials were very common during World War I, where they were called trench watches. pretty much all watches were created with radium between 1917 and up until the 1970s.
Whoa.
At least, yeah, at least all watches that illuminated. So not all watches, just the illumination.
It's a
So
notion that if it glows in the dark, it's because it's radiating electrons, right? It's radioactive.
Yep. The radium in the watches could be radioactive years after production. It was a combination of radium and zinc sulfide, and it could be painted onto watches. So if you have an old watch from this era, and you want to know if it's still radioactive, you can use a Geiger counter, just like what Sheldon recommended, which he did pack.
Which he packed.
Yeah. So then it got me wondering about how do they illuminate them today? If they're not using radium, what are they doing? So these days, watchmakers use materials like strontium aluminate, but this only lasts around 7 hours. So apparently radioactive materials will last longer.
They have half-lives.
And fancy watches uses tritium tubes. So they're gas forms. So but that's radioactive too. But it's such a small dose that it's not harmful. So these are like what a little gas tritium is into these little tubes that line your watch. That's fancy.
That's no wonder they cost so much.
Yep. And other types of watches can use electroluminescence, also known as a light bulb style, and that relies on an electrical current passing through phosphor to create a glow. It's the style that you press a button and it lights up the backing.
It's kind of like neon, right? Where you put electrical current through and it...
Yep, and those are what they're doing now.
I remember when I was a kid, I learned that when I was a kid, my biggest fear was nuclear war and radiation poisoning and dying as my skin falls off. I had a weird childhood, but anyways, I heard about glow in the dark stuff being made with radium and it causing radiation poisoning. And I remember I had this model car that glowed in the dark and I was terrified of it. And my parents were like, don't worry, they don't use radium today. And I go, so how does it glow? And going back to that Munchausen trilemma, they just broke it off with, Ryan, you just have to accept it glows. I'm like, okay.
It glows and it's not radioactive.
And it's not going to kill you so far. But wow, I stayed away from that for a couple days. I'm like, that thing's going to kill me.
And this is where ignorance is bliss. Because one of my favorite toys was I had this medieval castle Lego set, and one of the characters was the glow in the dark ghost.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Loved it. I wasn't worried about radium.
I was putting it in my mouth and be like, the ghost tastes pretty good. Tastes like radium.
Yeah, it tastes cancer free.
So they're talking about television shows, and they get into a discussion about Indian cinema, right?
Yep.
And it cuts over to Howard's apartment, and Raj is dropping Sheldon off, saying, "Tag, you're it," right?
I actually went a little further. I looked into who these actresses were.
I was thinking about it, and then I kind of backed up because I didn't feel like I could do it enough justice. But what'd you get?
Well, I guess it was more of a mini dive. So they mention a couple actresses in Bollywood, Aishwarya Rai and Madhuri Dixit. And, yeah. And they're both still relevant today. They're both actually still in movies and TV shows to this day.
Oh, that's cool.
So Raj really likes Aishwarya Rai, and Sheldon refers Rai to being the poor man's Madhuri Dixit. So I don't know if we can really judge them and who's better, because I've never really seen their cinema. Yeah. So I won't say which one is better than the other, but a little background on them. I found all this on IMDb. So Raj's girl, Aishwarya Rai, has 43 awards and 60 nominations. She has 51 acting credits, and she was Miss India runner up of 1994. And later that year, she won Miss World.
Wow.
Very impressive. And then Sheldon's favorite, Madhuri Dixie, she has 18 awards and 40 nominations. So she has less awards, but she has 88 acting credits. And going back to college dropouts, she was actually a microbiology major, but dropped out
Oh,
after 6 months.
that's fair.
Yep, those were the highlights.
Did you
So
get
those are
their
those actresses.
ages by chance? I'm curious, are they the same? I mean, they're both still in
Oh.
films, but is one like known for a different age?
Oh, no, they're both still relevant now. They look like they're about the same age.
Hmm. Interesting.
You know what? Let's take a look right now. We're in front of a computer. I guess we could stop and look it up.
What is a computer?
Computer.
Computer. Because if we have to compare something like Arnold Schwarzenegger to Channing Tatum, like I feel like it's good to know that they're from different ages, right?
Yeah.
They're both still alive. They're both still in movies, but
All right. Aishwarya Rai was born in 1973. So remember that number.
73.
And Madhuri Dixie, born in 1967.
So not too far apart.
Yeah, they're relatively the same.
Yeah, I got that. I get it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, don't really know. I mean, I think it just comes down to preference of what actors and actresses you like.
And your film choices too, it's completely subjective because if you hate a movie that an actor's in, you're gonna hate that actor, right? To some
Yep,
extent.
you may even invite them to an island and feed them a menu.
Have the menu.
More on that later.
Dun, dun, dun. All right, so we're at Howard's house, and he puts Shelly on an air mattress, and Sheldon's complaining about it, saying there's no like lumbar support, right? It's an air mattress, and Howard's like, let's switch places, and they get into a bout about this. Sheldon's like, no, I'm fine here, but he's not fine there. I love that the mom yells up, are you guys roughhousing?
Yeah.
You'll have no more sleepovers, right?
For God's sakes, Mom, 27 years old. And it's not even a school night.
Not even a school night. I in some ways could see me if I'm staying over with my parents, like, and then if they complain I make too much noise, I can see me still saying, it's not a school night. Like, as funny or as much as I want to make fun of Howard for that, like, I think I still say that sometimes. And then Sheldon starts counting the number of cat women and says that Halle Berry is his fourth and fifth favorite. And then starts counting X-Men, right?
Well, I did look into like why how Halle Berry was so popular. Like it was 2008, so I looked into like she was kind of on top of the world at this point.
And she had just done the Catwoman movie. Like it was a sole movie for Catwoman.
Yeah, which was a total bust, which I didn't even watch. But all I heard was terrible things, which makes sense that he chose Halle Berry as his least favorite Catwoman.
That's fair.
But at this point, Halle Berry was in Things We Lost in the Fire, Perfect Stranger, X-Men: The Last Stand, Robots, which was it was a voice, Catwoman, Gothica, X2, and back in 2002, she became a Bond girl.
Oh yeah,
in Die Another Day.
Yeah,
and her major award was around that time. So 6 years earlier, her major award for Monsters Ball.
I still need to see that. I really need to see that. Heard nothing but good things.
I've never seen it either. I think at this stage in 2002, I was more about the comic book stuff and the action stuff.
I don't know. If it lands on my plate, I'd watch it. I'd read it. I just, for some reason, that one never came across my plate. As I don't know what I was doing. But I'm thinking Michelle Pfeiffer was my favorite Catwoman. As a kid, it was interesting. As a kid, I never found her to be that attractive. As far as celebrity crushes go. But as I've grown up, I think she's very beautiful, and her in the latex costume, it's Tim Burton, right? I'm like,
Yep.
that to me is the depiction of Catwoman and always will be.
I will say that Michelle Pfeiffer aged so well.
Ugh.
She's part of the MCU now, so she's going to be in the new Ant-Man movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I saw her like most recent. I'm sure she's doing other stuff, but I just saw her in the other Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I was like, dang, she aged really well.
She's still holding up. She's nice.
Yeah,
There's
but
a movie she's in with Bruce Willis called Story of Us. And I think it was kind of critically panned, and like I don't think it's on Blu-ray even. But if you get the chance to watch it, it is a great relationship film where Michelle Pfeiffer and Bruce Willis are debating getting a divorce, and they split up for summer, and it's a realistic relationship. And I think after watching that, I'm like, Michelle Pfeiffer really pulls it off. She's a great actor, and I hadn't realized that until that, and then it started clicking together. How great she is.
well, this goes into, I guess, a partial IQ point.
Partial like you.
About the other Catwomen. So Sheldon is listing off his favorite Catwomen.
And we have to say this is before Anne Hathaway, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So there are actually three women to portray Catwoman after this. Anne Hathaway is one of them. So Julie Newmar, she was the in quote original from the 1960s with Adam West. And then there was Lee Merriweather, and she was just in one of the movies in 1966. So Adam West movie. Then there was Eartha Kitt, and she was in the third and final season of the Batman show with Adam West. And then goes into Michelle Pfeiffer many years later, all the way up into 1992. And then Halle Berry in 2004. And then 8 years later, Anne Hathaway in The Dark Knight Rises. And then Cameron B. Kondova in Gotham, which is the TV show.
Oh.
I tried watching that. I watched the first episode. I don't know. There was just something about it. I was like, ugh.
Was that on the CW?
Yeah, it's a CW show. That's where it's like, I don't know. And then most recently in 2022, Zoe Kravitz.
What was she in?
In general, like what other shows were?
What show was she in? Yeah, as Catwoman, was it?
Oh, the Batman.
It was
with Robert Pattinson.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it was. The Batman. Yeah.
Yeah. Great Batman movie. Like I know a lot of people say that they didn't like it, and I feel that the Batman was a love letter to true comic book fans. Like that was like one of the more comic book accurate Batmans.
I think the reason I liked it was because it was paid so much tribute to like the early 90s, the grunge era. And I mean, a lot of it was Kurt Cobain songs, right?
I will say that trailer had like 10 million views. I'm pretty sure 1 million of them were my views. That was such a good trailer.
That's fair.
With the Nirvana song, Something in the Way.
Yeah.
Oh.
And just that movie like brought me back to my childhood, like being, like you said, reading comics, watching MTV and a bunch of grungy rock. And I liked it.
It was a good one. I liked it.
It did justice.
So Michelle Pfeiffer is your favorite Catwoman, and honestly, I'm gonna say she's mine too. I grew up on the Adam West ones in the '60s. Like I remember being at my grandma's house in like the early '90s, watching old reruns.
Oh.
But Michelle Pfeiffer is still my favorite.
I think it's partially as I age. I appreciate that latex fetish a little bit more every year. Alright, so they get done. Well, he counts X-Men as well, and Howard's dropping. They move on. Howard drops Shelley back off with Leonard, and Shelley's acting kind of weird. Howard's drugged him with milk and Valium, and I love the line later. He goes, "I drank milk that tasted funny."
That was another laugh out loud moment. I love drunk and intoxicated Sheldon.
And I have to wonder, if he knew it tasted funny, why did he keep drinking it? Like, was he just trying to be polite? Or on some level, did he know what was going on?
Probably polite. He's too innocent. In that regard, I think he's too innocent.
Possibly. It tasted funny.
He also says, "Mom smokes in the car." Jesus is okay. Don't tell Dad.
Yeah, what's the secret? Mom smokes in the car.
I'm Batman.
That made me laugh really a lot, actually. Don't tell Dad. And of course, what's the other secret? I'm Batman.
Yep.
And finally, it comes out. He does spill the secret. This reminds me of in Frasier. If you ever watch Frasier, well, you should. And spoiler alert, you can clip out right now if you want to. But the big romantic interest is between Niles and Daphne, right? And they go seasons with Daphne having no idea that he's fond of her, and him being head over heels. And the person who finally breaks the secret is Frasier while he's drugged up on a muscle relaxer or something. And then they pull it off. They play it off where he doesn't even remember saying the secret. So she knows, and nobody knows that she knows.
I love Frasier.
Right.
It was... we've actually had several conversations about Frasier and everything like that, and Frasier is one of those shows, like, when you first start watching it, you're just like, what am I watching? What is this? And everything, and then you realize that it's just complete satire of Seattle.
Yeah.
In the 90s.
And people are like, well, isn't that like really highbrow, intelligent humor? I'm like, no, it's making fun of the highbrow humor. Like, this is it's satire.
Yeah.
I love it.
I should watch that again. I need another show to watch. So
that's like my good night show. Like, if I'm ever having trouble going to sleep, I turn on an episode of that.
And we all had a crush on Roz.
Right, Roz and Daphne. They're both wonderful. Alright, so finally Leonard goes to Penny's door, right? And says he knows the problem. Sheldon spilt the secret and gives Penny a college brochure, right?
So dumb.
So dumb.
So dumb.
And I like, because he does admit, he goes, yeah, I can even see what I did wrong here, right? He's very quick.
I see it.
I see it. But he's not respecting her for who she is. And his action does kind of call her dumb.
Yeah.
And
like,
then
he even admits, like, well, he even says, I'd like you even though you're dumb. Granted, that's not like how you should word it.
Yeah.
But that's how he should have approached it from the start. It's like, I don't care that you didn't go to college.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'd like you for a lot of other reasons.
Yeah.
There's so many other reasons to love somebody. In fact, probably one would argue the most important reasons are not college related.
Yeah.
So he's walking alone back to his apartment and looks up at the camera and says, "Bite me." Because they are still documenting him burning and failing at the relationship.
Yep. And that's episode 1 of season 2.
Season 2, episode 1.
We did it. It's a strong start to 2023.
Yeah.
For us.
I'm happy with this. And I got a new journal.
Nice.
It looks like my other one, but it's cheaper. It's the Amazon brand. I don't like it as much, but apparently the brand that made my other one doesn't make journals anymore, so I had to settle.
Does the cover say I'm not a serial killer?
In blood.
Oh, okay. Whoa. Whose blood?
I don't know.
Don't answer that.
I don't remember it.
I had some funny tasting milk, and now I don't remember.
I don't remember.
All right. Well, overall thoughts of this episode?
I liked it. I'm glad it's starting off strong. I'm still excited to see where it goes, and I know that it's going to get better just because TV shows find their rhythm in season 2, and got a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like this it was a strong start. They finally caught their footing. We're understanding the characters a lot more. A lot of laugh out loud moments. Great episode.
Yeah. Drink some funny tasting milk. So you're ready to talk about the menu?
I think I am. All right, so that's it pretty much for our episode on The Big Bang Theory. Like we said at the top of the episode, Ryan shot me a text earlier in the week saying you need to watch this. You would appreciate it as a culinarian. So we're going to talk about this. So I guess we'll go into a little bit of housekeeping just before we just transition over into it. So thanks again for listening and joining us. We're really looking forward to 2023, especially now that I have a better microphone.
Woohoo!
Please leave us a review on Apple, since that's apparently the only place that you could leave us a review. Follow us on Instagram at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. Email us, shoot us a message, just say hi, tell us what you like about us, what you don't like about us, maybe some constructive criticism, or maybe just some parts about the show. At this point, let me look at the calendar.
Could tell Rob to go back to his old mic, or that the new mic's working. We like to hear that.
Yeah, you got a couple weeks. We record every other week, so if you want to stay on top of, if you want to join in on the conversation, the next episode that we're going to talk about is Season 2, Episode 2, The Codpiece Topology. So send us an email about what you liked about this episode, your favorite moments. Maybe just do your own deep dive on an IQ point.
Or if we got something wrong, point it out. Yeah. Tell us how stupid we are.
Actually, yeah. Like if you have some information or want to comment on anything, just send us an email. And that's pretty much it. So thanks for listening. And now the menu. So if you haven't watched the menu and you don't want any spoilers, because this is going to be full on spoiler.
Yeah.
Full on. So stop right now. Insert sound effect for stopping. Right here. All right. The menu. Oh, fuck, I love this movie.
Where did it come from? Like, I hadn't heard of it, and like,
so
I saw a poster of it, and then it's on HBO. I'm like, whoa.
So I am religiously on Instagram. It's just like it's my go-to thing, like for anything. It's not my Twitter. It's where I get my information. It's where I get my updates on everything. I post there. I have my personal one. I have our channel one. I've been seeing advertisements for the menu for like the last year before it even like came out and everything like that. And it's funny because I don't listen with sound on my Instagram. Yeah. So I always see trailers not knowing any context of audio. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. They're doing a menu, but like, okay, it looks like it's supposed to be a horror, and I'm not super into the horror genre. Uh-huh. So that's why it's like, oh, I kind of want to see this, but I'm kind of scared to see it. It has so many great actors. Ralph Fiennes, Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
Fuck, I love John Leguizamo. I'd watch anything with him in it.
Uh-huh. And he was such a great part to this too. Nothing I would expect from him. Nothing.
Yeah. So, but then again, like I said, it was the horror side of it that was like, I don't know if I'm going to watch it. But
Mm-hmm.
then once you told me to watch it, I asked you, like, well, is it gory? Because I don't really do well with, like, the whole, like, hacker slash. I'm not super into hacker slash films.
Yeah.
So I was, and, like, you know, they're chefs with a bunch of knives and everything like that. Who knows how much stabby it's going to be.
Yeah.
So
I was going in thinking it was going to be some sort of cannibalism, that the guests were going to be the menu for the next time. And it wasn't like that. I was surprised.
Yeah, I was super surprised too. And I will say, the moment I started it, that first conversation between Tyler and Margot, the two main characters, I knew I was gonna love it. Just like the way that they interacted, what the conversation was. She busts out a cigarette. He's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you doing? You're gonna ruin your palate." I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna like this. I'm gonna like this.
Right up my alley."
Yeah, because that's one of the first things that I learned as a chef. It was like, "Hey, you want to take being a chef serious? Don't smoke."
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because so many chefs out there smoke. It's so like it's one of the ironies of the industry.
Uh-huh.
It's like, dude, you want to be a great culinarian? Don't smoke because cigarettes will destroy your palate.
Yeah. He can make it work. It's going to be that much tougher. It's like writers who want to write but don't read. And it's like, you could probably make it work, but that's going to be really tough.
Yeah. You have to immerse yourself into the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved this movie. Like everything about it, like the whole like satire of the culinary world, because I lived this world. Like, so some background information is that I did go to college. I studied sociology, but then I realized that my passion in life was food. So I did a 180 and I entered the restaurant world. I rose up and I finally became an executive chef. So I have reached that status. So I love food. I've seen every type of personality in the kitchen. I've seen it all. I've seen the chef. I've seen the foodie. I've seen the client that doesn't care. I've seen the rich tech people that think that they know what they're talking about, but they're really just throwing money at food.
Mm-hmm.
At a meal and everything. I've seen it all. So that's one thing that I loved about this, was that like it was just a mockery of it all. Because it is, at the end of the day, the culinary world to me is a huge joke. Like I love it. I still love it, but at the same time it's like it's almost laughable where it's gone.
And it's I feel like it could be interchanged. They held up perfectly to the culinary world, but it could be the art world, the literary world, the film world, anything creative in any way, shape, or form, and how people suck the
joy out of it.
The joy out of it, yeah.
I'm sure you see this all the time as being like a professor in the literary world. You read a lot, you write your own stuff, and you teach it. So then I'm sure at some point the joy has been sucked out of you, right?
Yeah. Over analysis of works, and I think I've been a lot more fortunate than others to be able to separate being analytical and just loving the process. Where other people are like, man, how can you once you start analyzing and really critiquing a piece of artwork or literature or food, how can you ever just sit down and indulge in it again? And it's tough, but if you aren't able to do that, it ruins it.
And that's one line that stuck out to me that I really loved in this movie, was when the chef tells everyone at the start of the meal, don't eat your food. Don't eat, taste. Like, experience it. Really just be present.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you have to tell your students that all the time.
I try to.
But you lost all hope.
I've lost hope. I've given
Hope
up.
is gone. You Gen Zers.
Now I just read them bedtime stories. But yeah, I love that they have kind of tropes from every angle of the field, right? They have the rich people who are constants or regulars, but they don't really care about the food. They have the movie star. I like the movie star that they basically have there because he's completely, what's the word? Not narcissistic, but egomatic, very self-inflated ego.
Yeah.
And when he's like, apparently the main chef is pissed off at him for making a bad move, and he's like, I didn't write it, I didn't direct it, and he's like, but your face was on it and it still haunts me. Like that line was it haunts me.
Yeah. I think that's like people don't realize that there are so many other key players in the creative space.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's food or a book or a movie or a TV show, it is not just that actor that makes or breaks it. It's the director, it's the other actors, it's the lighting, it's the sound, it's the storyboard, it's all these other things. But for some reason, the actor that's the main actor, the main character, that is associated.
Yep.
And the same thing in it kind of goes into it. They didn't really touch on this in the movie, but that's what happens a lot in restaurants. The chefs and the cooks are in the back of the house, so nobody ever sees them. So the person that takes the brunt of the criticism is the server.
Uh-huh.
Which is kind of wild to think about. It's like they didn't make the food. It's not their restaurant. They're literally just taking your order and grabbing it.
And with
Yet somehow they have to take all of the baggage, all of the bad stuff.
And it counters that with the tipping as well, that if the food's really good, they might get the extra tip for it being really good, but it's like the back of the house are the ones who are putting in the effort for that, and they get kind of shunned, right?
Yep. I've never worked in a restaurant. Well, in terms of formal restaurants, I've never worked in a restaurant that the cooks got tipped out.
I've had friends who have shared tips throughout, so that the basically all the waitresses and all the workers and all the cooks and everybody got a portion of the tip.
That's good. I like that because it's more of a family style thing.
Yeah.
You carry each other. It does get a little hard when there is that one person that doesn't pull their weight, but it's rare.
You get irritated with that, right?
That's why they get fired.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I feel like that will take care of itself in time, yeah. But I like that notion, too, that we are, no matter what field we're in, it may become work, but we have other fields that we go to relax. And the chef went to movies. And I think the same goes that I have books, I write, I teach. And when I go out to eat, it is a form of escapism, right? And if I have a bad meal, it's like, I wasted my night, I wasted my money, I wasted my time. I can understand why the chef was mad that the movie sucks.
Yeah, and I definitely related to that in the sense that I didn't get a lot of days off when I was grinding as a cook. I worked 2 jobs because I was trying to, well, one, I was trying to pay the bills, and 2, I was trying to learn as much as I could. Yeah. And you could only really learn by doing. So I worked in multiple restaurants. I worked 7 days a week. I would go 40 days without a day off, and then I would get 1 day off. So then I would just, honestly, I would probably just sleep and watch TV. But then, just like him, you want to relax and unwind. If you watch something shitty, it's like, fuck, I just wasted my day. My 1 day off, and now I have to grind again.
You stole my one day.
Yeah, you stole all hope of life. So I get that. I related to that.
And the main character was the foodie, and I felt like this was a really interesting conversation of how far does being a fan go too far, right? That fans can suck the life and the joy out of art, and that part of it is magic, right? You appreciate the artist for being magical and just enjoy their work.
Yeah, and that's one thing that like I definitely related to Tyler. He was the main character. He was the foodie. He was played by Nicholas Hoult, and he is that representation of everything that's wrong with the food world. I loved him and hated him at the same time. I loved him in the sense that he appreciated food. He looked at all the culinarians as artists. He really respected them. But I hated him in the sense that he felt that he was above them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in one of the earlier scenes of when he got to the restaurant. Was one of the he interacted with one of the cooks, and the cook was like, "Oh, you're Tyler so and so. We know all of our guests." And he was like, "Cool." And then he goes back to the table, tells his date that, and she's like, "Well, what was his name?" He's like, "I didn't ask." And she's like, "Well, why?" And he was like, "Well, you know." And it's because at the end of the day, they're servers.
Yeah. They're the shit
So
shovelers, right? As they say.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he does appreciate food, and I really do like that about him. But at the same time, one of my okay, this goes into my favorite scene of the movie was when he gets put on the spot and he's asked to cook something.
Yeah.
And it shows that I'm sure it's like this in the literary world too, where everybody thinks that they're an expert,
Everyone's a
but
critic.
everyone's a critic. Everyone thinks that they're an expert, but yet they cannot execute.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so funny, like the commentary that the chef was giving. He was like, "Okay, get me the butter, get me the leeks, get me this,
He's like,
get me the lamb." And
oh
the
shit,
chef is like,
do you want shit?
and the chef is like, "We are witnessing a revolution of cuisine." And he just made like the biggest piece of shit on a plate. Because he only knows how to critique. Everybody can have opinion, but not everybody can execute. And I thought that that was a great thing to throw in there, just
Yeah.
for like the artistic field.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody could judge art, but nobody understands how to do it and the troubles it goes to making it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure like you've written some like short stories or long stories or like novels and everything like that. It's blood, sweat, and tears, man.
Absolutely. There's memes my friends share online that are basically like, a writer spends years of their life pouring blood, tears, and effort into a piece, and then you buy it for $9.99 on Amazon, and it's like, wow, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that was a chunk of my life, but here for $10, have that chunk of my life.
Honestly, what kills me is that when people, I mean, I understand that like a restaurant is an experience. It's not just the food. People don't realize that it is a group effort.
Yeah,
They only see the product and they only judge certain people on it.
that's a huge thing. Is even my parents didn't realize that with writers, like you get the writer who usually gets most of the credit, but then you get all the beta readers, you get all the editors, you got the proofreaders, and by the time it actually enters publication, like 20 people have read it and given advice on it at least. And it's like one person's up front taking the blunt of it, but they it's a group. Art is even musicians, I would say that you usually take the lead singer as the icon for the whole thing, but it's a group work.
Yeah, it's not just Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Ringo is huge in that. No matter how many people make fun of Ringo, he was an essential part of the Beatles. And I definitely, I really relate to the chef at every, like, oh God, this movie was so good. Like, every person there has wronged him. And that's one thing, like, that realization, that twist, that it wasn't that he was after a target set of people, that he wasn't just a psycho. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, he totally was a psychopath, but he was after them for a reason. He had a reason to go after them. He was after the critic because that critic destroys lives. People don't realize that their words mean something. When you put a negative comment on a YouTube video or a podcast,
Or
it means something.
podcast.
It means something. People are going to see that. That's why I know we joke around about the 5-star review, but it's really important, because if someone does put that 1-star review, it destroys all of the work that they've done.
Yeah. And it becomes not even constructive, that it's simply destroy to destroy, right?
Yeah, it's like, why aren't you why don't you give a piece of constructive criticism? Why are you making that public? Why don't you just reach out to them and say, hey Rob, maybe work on your microphone. It's kind of sounds a little low, rather than just 1-star review.
Hey Ryan, stop being so serial killery.
Yeah, 1-star review.
1-star review.
And then there was like the whole tech people that kind of just like destroyed the essence of the restaurant too, because they were like doing illegal activity, and it all became about the money.
And the angel investor trying to take over, even though he had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, it's like, I'm throwing you money, so that gives me a voice.
Yeah.
But their voice isn't necessarily the correct voice in that creative space.
Yeah.
And then there was the foodie who he just wanted to kill just because he's a fucking foodie.
I like at the end too that it seems like all the chefs, all the workers, and the diners like accepted their fate. Like, we understand why we're here, right?
I think I definitely thought about that, and I definitely associated that to the elitism.
Mm-hmm.
That there are these customers in the food world that are so privileged and elite that they don't know what to do when they're offered resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the $1 million question for me. It's like, why are they not trying harder to fight back?
Yeah.
They have every opportunity to grab a knife, to gang up on one person and find the exit. Yet they didn't. And it took me a while to realize this, and it's because they're so elite and above everyone else that they don't know how to fight back. They're in that space where all they have to do is say, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? And then people just cave in to their needs.
Well, we're regulars here, so you should cater to us, right?
Yeah. So then the moment that they're offered a series of resistance, they're just like, well, I guess we'll just have to sit here and take it. I guess I'm going to die. I guess I'm going to become a s'more.
I'm a s'more now. Yeah. That seems fitting.
Yep. But I actually loved the ending, and I loved the meaning of it all. That the chef, the villain of the story, lost his way. His entire life was built on food, and that joy was taken away. So I loved that Margot was able to like pinpoint, like, what brings you joy?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to you? I'm going to order a cheeseburger. And the way he looked was so, it's going to be burned in my mind. Like, him rekindling his love and like finding that joy again is going to be burned in my memory like forever.
It was so subtle but so powerful too, right?
Yeah, just that how it kind of panned in on his face. That he like that look that he always gave, that serious look, just faded away. It was so subtle, but it was so powerful. It's like you said. And I feel like I've been there. I've been there. Like, as you're cooking day in and day out, you kind of get to a point where it's like, what's the point? I'm not even cooking what I want to cook.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Does
just
anybody care?
following.
Does it make anybody happy?
Yeah. Like, I'm sure you're the same way where it's like, I don't want to follow the school's curriculum. I want to teach English the way that I want to teach it.
Yeah, is anybody even listening? I'm trying, but are they paying attention? Are they actually gaining anything from it? Or am I just up here dancing around?
Yeah, reading bedtime stories.
Reading bedtime stories.
Yeah. All right, so I've been spewing off on how this relates to my life. Tell me, like, your experience of it.
I think it connects very, very similarly. I think this goes for all art forms, and the notion that people criticize everything, but they don't take into account how difficult stuff is. And, there's so many people I know who will say, like, I've had teachers who are like, bring up the notion of other people saying, "Oh, I'm going to write a book," or "I could write a book. I could do that easily. That's not real work," or whatever. And the best response is just say, "Go for it. Have at it." Because if you can do it, then wonderful. But if we're going to go ahead and take the odds that not everybody can do it, because it is very difficult. Just like the foodie trying to cook a meal, you can understand the ingredients, you can know the taste, but doesn't mean you know how to put them all together. And
Execution is a huge thing. Like, one thing that drives me crazy is like, I love bloggers, but I hate them at the same time.
mm,
And one thing that I actually do find a little offensive is when people refer to food bloggers as chefs. It's like, well, no, you're
no.
not a chef. You're an amazing home cook.
Mm-hmm.
And I will not deny that. I really appreciate what you do. What you make is amazing, but you're not a chef. You've never worked in a restaurant. You don't know the grind. You don't know how to budget things. Like, there's so many other aspects to being a chef than just cooking. Because
Yeah.
anybody can create a good meal. But
Mm-hmm.
it's about sourcing the products. It's about costing it out. It's about building it. And it's about building it consistently every time.
That consistency is huge, bigger than I ever thought. Like as I've grown up, like just why McDonald's has become such a staple. It's not because it's good necessarily, but because it's consistent.
Yeah, you can go to any state, any country in the world, and it'll taste the exact same.
Mm-hmm. So that's what
Yep,
I
same thing with Starbucks too.
I love the
You want
movie.
your pumpkin latte? You can get it anywhere.
you know, uh, Although I hear with like Coors or Miller Lite, like people, beer drinkers, will harp on those popular beers. However, it's what's the word? Accomplishment, an astounding amazement that brewers can make the same beer no matter where they are in the world, because the ingredients are going to be different, the temperature is going to be different, the atmosphere is going to be different, the water pH is going to be different, and somehow they're able to mix all those together and recreate things to have the same tasting Miller Lite that people are looking for. Although I've heard there are some like beer drinkers who are refined enough, I guess, that can say, "Oh, this Miller came from the East Coast U.S. or whatever versus the West Coast." I don't know, but to me, they taste the same, and that consistency is incredible. I can't even be consistent from one batch to the next with the same recipe.
Yeah, because as a home brewer, I'm sure you're dealing with the same thing. Like, the grains are different from a different crop. The hops come from a different crop,
How long they've
so
been
it's going to
sitting
taste slightly
around, the
different.
temperature, like all of that.
Yeah,
So awesome movie. Loved it. Highly recommend.
I I'm glad you told me to watch it because, like I said, I was really afraid that it was going to turn into some like gore fest. Like, we're going to cannibalize you.
Right?
You're
Yeah.
going to eat your own patron. That's what kind of scared me off. But
And there was
Once
a
you told
little
me it's not
blood,
like
but not too much. Not too much.
no, I
Yeah.
didn't think it was very. I mean, it had some violence in it, but like nothing too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that it was basically like a satire of an episode of Chef's Table.
Yeah.
How like they had the cut scene of like showing the meal and having this poetic description of like what it is.
I was thinking of Anthony Bourdain. I loved him.
Me too.
And hearing him talk about how sometimes they're in other countries and they have to be gracious guests, right? And somebody asked him, like, well, does anybody ever get food poisoning? He's like, yeah, but we are polite and we keep on going. I'm like, wow.
Anything else about this? Like,
I think
I'm trying to think if there's anything other noteworthy things.
I think we covered everything I wanted to cover.
Yeah, I thought it was a great story. It was very exaggerated, very far fetched, but it is supposed to be that. It's a satire.
Yeah.
I love the actors in it. The Anya Taylor-Joy is a gem.
Yeah, she is.
Nicholas Hoult is always great in everything. Ralph Fiennes is always scary.
Yeah.
No matter what, he's always horrifying no matter what he does. Yeah, the food critic is the girl from Ozark. Actually,
yeah.
A little shout out to her. Like, I thought she did a great job. I loved her hair in it. Her little purple streak. Loved it. And then who else was there? Oh, dude, the old couple. The wife, she was in Who's the Boss?
Really?
Yeah.
I did not pick up on that.
Yeah. She was in Who's the Boss. Like, I kept looking at her. I was like, why do you look so familiar? What? Judith Light?
Wow. Yeah. I didn't get any advertisements. I saw a poster at the movie theater and then it was on HBO. I'm like, oh, I want to watch that. Completely blown away. I love when that happens because so many movies let me down, but it's out of nowhere. It's good.
It is. There is something kind of magical about watching a movie not knowing anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
You just turn it on and you just go for it.
Where did that come
from? Yeah, it's like, wow. For me, that was Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, yeah.
If you ever watch Cabin in the Woods or if you're planning on watching it, I think it's on Netflix right now, or it might be on HBO. I think it's on HBO right now. Watch it knowing as little as possible. Just turn it on.
Definitely.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
Like, so many twists and turns, you're just like, what the fuck?
Where is this going?
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I got. I think that's all I got.
That's all I got. It's a good episode. Good talk about the menu.
Yep.
Good week. Good 2023.
Yep. We're starting it very strong. If anybody actually lasted this long in the episode, if you have anything that you want to talk about the menu, shoot us an email. All right.
You win the opportunity to give us a 5-star review. Congratulations.
Well, thanks again for listening, everyone. This was Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD necessary. Our intro and outro music is by Alice Grohl, and our logo is by John Kim. Thanks for listening.
Thanks. Do that too, but I wrap them up just so that they stay together, and I know that like I can.
Why would
verify.
You need to if they're dirty?
I don't know. Just it's a good system, and I like the system.